All right, so we will go ahead and get started. Welcome again to the SUAS Team Time. We're very excited to be able to kick off this year's competition and go over some details with all of you. I know there's a lot of questions, so we're going to try to go over as much information today as possible. As we go through today's session, feel free to use the chat to ask your questions. We got some questions beforehand, so we've made sure to include that information throughout today's session. But again, if you continue having questions as we go through, use that chat and we'll try to cover them as we go through today. My name is Juliana. If I haven't met you, I work at RoboNation, the organization that puts on the SUAS competition. Last year, we kind of transitioned from previous hosts, so this is our first official year hosting the competition, and we're excited to be able to bring you another competition. After 20 plus years, this competition has continued to grow, and we're excited to see everything that you all have prepared for this season. So today we have a lot of different information we're going over. We're just going to do a quick intro into the competition and then dive deep into the details with the event and what to expect, as well as the competition, where I know a lot of your questions lie. So I will go ahead and get started just with just a quick welcome. We are excited to be back at St. Mary's Regional Airport. They are able to offer us the space again this year, and so we're excited to be returning back there and being able to have so many teams involved in this year's competition season. So it's an exciting year for another SUAS. We have a few folks that I just wanted to introduce. A few of them are on the call with us today, so you should be able to see a few familiar faces. A lot of these folks here are either directly supporting RoboNation and other competitions that we have. And then we also have Manav, who specifically supports the SUAS competition as one of our technical directors. You'll also hear from Sherry, who is our senior events manager and helps manage all of the logistics for all of the competitions that RoboNation puts on. We also have Laverne on the call with us today, and she helps communicate with all of you, provide you with the information you need, connect you with each other and grow the community. And then we also have Joe, who's on the call today, who's our technical manager at RoboNation, and he helps kind of link all the technical aspects of all of our competitions together. So we are here to bring you hopefully the best experience that we can, and we will continue being able to talk with you as we lead up to the competition and seeing a few of you on site as well. Just to kind of give a shout out on the design documentation, that is something sort of new that we brought back this year. The design report has been something that SUAS has had in previous years, and this year we were able to bring it back and then add on the team website. One of the things that we really like to focus on for RoboNation competitions is not only the technical aspects of everything that you all are doing with your projects, but also being able to communicate them and being able to document them, because that's very helpful for you as you continue to compete or grow your project into a research project, whatever it is that is next for the work that you're working on. It's really important to be able to document it down and be able to synthesize it on paper as well. And so that's one of the biggest things that we try to incorporate in the competitions is the design documentation side of it. So this year we had the technical design report and team website that you all prepared. They are currently both getting judged and evaluated by our online judges. And so we will be publishing the results of that after the competition. You will not only get the scores for what you earned on both of those submissions, but you'll also get detailed feedback from the judges as they went through their evaluation. They're providing you with some feedback, some questions, things to consider for future documentation, particularly for SUAS, hopefully next year. The other piece is we do have some awards for these. So at this year's award ceremony, we will be able to give out some awards based off of the top ranked TDR and website. So we're excited to see what the results are. Another reminder that I wanted to give you all as you are preparing for competition, we sent out an email with this information last week, but we do have guest tickets available. So if you have any folks in the area or any folks that are coming with you that are supporting you and want to be able to see your flight or come on site and interact with your team, we do have some guest tickets that are available for purchase. All guests do have to be pre-registered before they attend the competition. So we encourage you to send this out to anyone that may be interested in attending the event. If you have questions on that, let us know. The other thing that's available for purchase is some meal tickets. So we do have the option to pre-purchase a boxed lunch for any of your team members. They would be available to pick up on site at that 12 to 1 lunch time frame that we have for each day. They do have to be purchased per day, so you have to have a ticket for Wednesday and a ticket for Thursday. They're not available for Tuesday because we won't start until after lunch. So they're only available for Wednesday and Thursday. And if you have any questions on that, we also have Sherry on the call, and so she'll be able to answer any of those questions. Those will be closing very soon, June 9th. And so make sure that you get those if you are interested in getting those tickets. All right, I am going to pass it over to Sherry to give you some details about the event and hopefully prepare you for what you'll see. So Sherry, over to you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sherry Koch. I'm the Senior Events Manager for RoboNation, and I'm super excited to be here. My job is to help you with logistics and get ready for you to come on site, have the tables and chairs and things that you need to have a great experience. So like to just kind of go over what our venue is going to look like in case you haven't been. Yes. First, Juliana and I are your main points of contact once you're on site. You will get a badge that you will have to wear, and our cell phone numbers will be on the back of that badge. We do encourage you always to communicate through Discord with us. That's one of the fastest ways to get answers to things. I'll say Juliana's like lightning, and so is Manav when answering those questions. I'm a little slower, a little older. So I've had to learn Discord, but it's a super fun tool, and I encourage you to use it to ask us questions, especially after this presentation, after this Zoom meeting, because we're here to things that we do when we're on. Find an orange vest. We have leads in all the different areas, whether it be who's checking you in to get on to the airstrip, or who is in charge of, who's the lead judge. You'll see that we have orange vests that say on the back of them, they'll either be lead judge or technical director, or we have things so that you know who to go to if you have a question. And if you don't know who the question to ask, you can just ask anybody in an orange vest, and we will have radios and we can find that answer for you or direct you to the right orange vest to get that answer, because we want you to have a great experience. All right, the competition schedule as has been posted. June 24th on Tuesday will be team check-in. At 1 o'clock, you'll get your name badges, you'll get meal tickets, spectator tickets if you have pre-registered your spectators. You'll get all that information that you need for the competition. There will be a mandatory team orientation. And Julianne, I know there was a question about who had to attend team orientation in some of our questions that were sent in. You want to just, I don't want to misrepresent.
Yeah, no worries. Yes, so we are requiring at least one team representative at team orientation. However, we do recommend as many of your team members to be there as possible. And Manav, I will caveat if there are any specifics that you want to require for attendance, you can also add to that.
Yeah, no, I think that sounds good to me, at least one representative. And then, yeah, if you need to pick one out of your team members, I'd pick either the team lead, the GCS operator, or the safety pilot. But as Juliana mentioned, as many as possible would be ideal.
I will say that this is the time historically that this is your chance to ask Manav all the questions. We have Discord, but during team orientation, after you have all of the craziness of your flight, or you're getting your equipment here, getting it all put together, getting it, ready for the competition and getting everything done. Once you're at the competition, that's when you can actually start thinking about questions that you have about the course, about the timing, about rules. And during team orientation, we have a question and answer time, and we'll stay there as long as you're asking questions of us, because that we want to make you successful so that you can be there. And having your whole team there is actually a really great opportunity for all the team members to ask their questions. The other thing is, right after team orientation, we are going to have a team networking social. We want you guys to not just be on site to compete against Manav or compete against each other. We want you to get to know each other. We want to create friendships. RoboNation stresses that type of environment. We want you to get to know each other. We want to have teams helping other teams, because as one of our other technical directors says, you're not really competing against each other. You're competing against our technical director, who's Manav. He's set up the tasks, he set up the scoring, and you want to see if you can make as many points as possible on the course that Manav has designed. So anyway, team networking social is going to be really fun. We're going to have snacks and just have a really fun time. On Wednesday, bright and early, safety inspections, be ready. We'll have our safety inspectors making sure that you have met all the rule requirements and have an opportunity to fix those things. We'll have safety inspectors pretty much most of the day. We'll start mission flights at 9 a.m. We will have our pre-purchased lunches available from 12 to 1, and then the facility closes at 5. We will, on Thursday, have a group video first thing in the morning, and then we'll have mission flights again, lunch again. We will have team pack up, and then we'll have awards on site at the airport, and then we're going to kick you out and go home after you've had a great time and had food and fun and awards. So next. All right, this is our site layout. As you can see here, you see where Team Village is. That is where St. Mary's Airport is. Where it says staff, that is the terminal building. That is, we just label it staff because that's where our staff offices will be. But there will be inside the terminal building, there actually is a bistro. So if you don't pre-purchase your meals, you have an opportunity to get some food or get something to drink if you forget, or if you run out of whatever you brought. You are able to bring food into Team Village from outside, but in case you need something else, there is a little lunch place there in the terminal building. We have parking in front of the terminal building. We do have reserved staff parking, which is right on the right-hand side of it, and then there is overflow parking, and you can see where team orientation is. We have provided those addresses for you on the posted schedule so that you can put those into your GPS and be directed right where those locations are. So, all right, this is what the actual site will look a little bit more like. You can see where the bistro is. You can see the entrance. There's a gate right on the right-hand side of the terminal, and that's where you will enter. You'll park in the front. You will enter. The Team Village is here with all of our tables, RoboNation booths, where you can ask questions there. You can do your check-in. We will have a mass check-in at the beginning. If you didn't get to check in at team orientation, we mostly everybody will have already checked in, but in case you're late or something happens and you don't check in, you can check in late. We don't encourage it, but you can. Well, we have a team waiting area tent. We've got some seating so that you can sit underneath the tent and watch some of the flights. The runway entrance, Manav will go over a little bit later about, that is strictly restricted to active teams and teams getting ready to go. We will have trucks with flatbed trailers that will actually take you out onto the runway and drop you off at the different courses, depending on where you're scheduled to fly. So anybody have any questions? You can put them in the chat if you have questions, and we'll answer them as we see them in the chat. So. All right, permitted areas. This is just a Google overview of the tarmac. And so must stay in the pit areas, which is where Team Village is. You can't cross onto the taxiway here without an escort, which means we will have a airstrip manager with a clipboard, and we will have drivers for you to help you get on to the taxiway. As you come in every morning, you will have to have your badge that we've given you at team orientation and check-in. If you miss check-in, you'll have to get an escort to come in. This is an active airport. I don't think in our slides we actually have over off to the left. There is actually some emergency services. There's an emergency helicopter that sometimes has to take off. You'll hear more about that during team orientation. But one of the things that we really need you to understand is even though the airport is shut down for operations, if the emergency helicopter gets a call, we do have to cease operations and bring everybody in and let that helicopter take off and land. So just know that we do have rules about entering different areas, and we would ask that you would respect those. So to help us to make sure that you're safe during the competition. So, all right. All right. The Team Village hours are from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Wednesday and Thursday. You will be inside of a tent, so you won't be baking out in the sun. Some teams, if you bring the larger fixed wing aircraft, it's real hard to fit everybody, and you get one 6-foot table. And so some of the teams actually have their aircraft on the side of the tent. There's a little grassy spot where you can put your larger aircraft if it doesn't fit at your table. So, and you will get an electrical outlet. All right. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Juliana or to Manav. Not sure.
It can go directly back to Manav.
Okay.
Yep. All right, sounds good. Like I mentioned, my name is Manav. I'm the SUAS technical director, so I oversee everything that's technical in regards to SUAS, the rules, the scoring, the mission layout, etc. And I'm just going to go briefly over the competition, the mission, safety inspections. It shouldn't be anything you guys haven't seen before. This is all pretty much directly taken out of the rules, but just want to give a quick overview of the entire mission while you guys have questions that come in throughout here. So starting off with the safety inspection. So like I said, this is directly taken from the appendix in the rules. But before you are cleared to fly your mission, we will be going through a full safety inspection of your aircraft and your team. So that includes making sure that your safety pilot has the correct certification, your air dog payload is no more than 2 pounds and has no method of sustained flight. There's a variety of things we'll check on your aircraft, such as if there's a remote ID module, your batteries are brightly taped, your fasteners don't feel loose, nothing unsafe with your aircraft, and all your fail safes are operating as expected. And then we'll check that your ground station has the units that we expect from you all, the flight boundary, the geofence is all enabled in there. We've already shared the geofence in the rules, so I recommend that all teams load that into their GCS systems prior to coming to competition, and making sure that all of your fail safes operate as expected from the ground station point of view as well. After the safety inspection, we'll be scoring all the design for transport elements. So this will be immediately after your safety inspection, but before you go out to fly. So we'll be taking the weight of your aircraft, scoring that, taking the packing volume of your aircraft and giving you those 5 minutes to unpack the aircraft to show that it's able to go from its packed to its unpacked state appropriately, and then seeing if you have those batteries that are within the easy to transport batteries area. There's no questions there. We'll move on to the next slide.
I had one quick question, Manav.
Yep.
What would be the direction for teams to request a safety inspection?
Yeah, so we'll be starting safety inspections based off of the flight order immediately upon the teams arriving at 8 a.m. on Wednesday. And so we'll be going through the flight order. If your team is not ready to conduct the safety inspection, when we get to your team, we'll be moving you to the end of the flight order. So if you're team number 6 and we get to you and you're not ready, you're going to be moved to the end of the flight order, which right now there's about 53 teams in the flight order. So it's a big risk to take. So we definitely recommend that you all run through some sort of mock safety inspection or ensure that you have everything set up beforehand so that when you do show up to competition, you're ready to go with the safety inspection. And then if we do skip over you because you weren't ready in time to request a safety inspection, you could always just ping one of the safety inspection judges or wait till they come back around to you. Our hope is that when the time opens up on Wednesday, that we get the first few teams out there as quick as possible, so that as soon as we get the airspace, we're ready to fly teams and maximize the amount of teams we fly both on day 1 and day 2. So in terms of flight line operations, so this stems from the safety inspection. So we will be following the flight order that is published on our website, but obviously that assumes that you have passed the safety inspection in the order we designated. If you don't pass the safety inspection, you won't get to fly. And if you pass the safety inspection later than expected, your flight order will be adjusted appropriately. We'll give you probably a 5 to 10 minutes heads up telling you that the trailer is coming to pick up your team and your UAS. And so that your team will consist of the up to 6 operators that will be going out to assist with the setup mission and teardown time. Once you get on the trailer, they will trailer you out to one of the 10 set up at either one of the courses, so runway A or runway B. And once you get there, we will start your setup time and give you the appropriate waypoints and payload the beacons so that you can start loading them onto the aircraft and start getting ready to fly. I see there's a question in chat. It says, does not being ready for inspection based on the scheduled time affect the scoring, or is it just moving the team to later hours? There is no scoring penalty for not being ready in time, but you will be moved later in the flight order. And if there is weather or some reason where we can't get through all the teams, you do risk the chance of not flying. Cool. A little bit of an overview of the flight area. So this is pulled from our appendix. The red is the mission flight boundary. The purple are the airdrop boundaries. The green are the mapping boundaries, and the blue are the runways. Everything but the runways has their latitude, longitudes for the points shared in the rules. So we recommend that you have those loaded up into your GCSs ahead of time. And it isn't explicitly defined, but the green mapping boundary and the purple airdrop and the blue runway that are joined together, like on the left and right side of this frame, will be coordinated together. So if you're on the left runway there, you'll be flying the mapping that encompasses around that area and the airdrop immediately next to it. We'll give you a reminder when you're at the flight line again that those are your respective mapping and airdrop areas, but just as a heads up ahead of time, whichever ones you're closest to are the ones you'll be attempting during your mission. Cool. So a little bit about the timeline. So once you get trailered to your tent at the flight line, we will start your setup time immediately upon giving you the mission details and waypoints. So that will be a printout with the waypoints, the 4 beacons that you can load onto your aircraft, and then a USB flash drive for submitting the mapping task if you're attempting that. And that setup time will be approximately 15 minutes, which the last 5 minutes must include a pre-mission brief. And a basic overview of a pre-mission brief is your operators telling the lead judges and the safety judges how many operators you'll be using, who's in charge of what element of the mission, and what your planned mission is, if you'll be attempting all the tasks, how many drops you plan on attempting, etc. Once your setup time is completed, that's when your mission time will begin. One thing to note here is that since we are having multiple teams flying at the same time and multiple teams at each runway, if the runway and the airspace is not available for you after your setup time has completed, we won't start your mission time because you aren't able to fly your mission yet. So you'll just have that extra time. We ask that you remain ready so that as soon as the runway is open and the airspace is open, you're ready to go, assuming it's been 15 minutes of setup time. One thing we've noticed here is that if it has been a while, say the teams before you're still flying, and it's been about an hour between you getting out to the tens and you getting out there and actually ready to fly, we've seen some systems overheat or not be ready after the 1 hour has elapsed or any period of time there. So we recommend that teams make sure that they bring the correct supplies to make sure the aircrafts don't overheat, that they can connect to the outlet if they need to charge batteries, et cetera, while they're waiting for their mission time. So try to bring everything out there with the assumption that you might be out at the tents for a while before you actually get to fly. When it comes to flying, your mission clock is 30 minutes, and you have that 30 minutes to do basically whatever you want in the mission. So take off, fly your laps, do your airdrops, do your mapping, your post-processing, etc. And that mission clock ends once your UAS is landed. It is off the runway. You have relinquished the airspace, and if you're attempting the mapping, you have submitted your map over the USB to the judge. If you go over 30 minutes, you'll see later on there's some pretty harsh penalties. So it's about 0.5% for every second. So we definitely recommend don't going over the mission time, because if you do, that prevents other teams from flying, and we want to get as many teams up there as possible throughout the days. After the mission time, you'll have approximately 10 minutes to remove all your equipment from the flight tent, pack up, get back on a trailer, and then be trailer back to the team village area. Some side things to this, you can call a timeout to stop the mission clock, assuming that you haven't successfully taken off and achieved the first waypoint yet. So this would be, let's say, right after setup time if you're not ready in time, or if after you take off you notice some instability or inconsistency with your system, you want to land and call a timeout. The timeout will last at least 10 minutes. But one thing to note here is that as soon as you call a timeout, we're going to take you off the runway and we're going to start the team that's been waiting to get on the mission clock. So they'll start running their mission while you're in your timeout. So your timeout could last longer than 10 minutes, assuming the other team's still flying their mission. And the timeout costs some points that I'll highlight later in the penalties section. And then kind of similar to a timeout is a competition pause. So Sherry mentioned this a little bit earlier on. We do have some air traffic that does occur due to emergencies and whatnot, but also if in the case of unexpected weather, we will pause all the mission systems. We'll tell you to land, and we'll wait until you're clear. And if that does happen, you are given a free 5-minute timeout to basically get your system back in working order. And this is the only reason you would be able to swap out batteries, charge up your batteries on your system, because it's an unexpected thing that might have costed extra battery life for your system. But besides this, there's no other areas in the mission where you're allowed to swap out your batteries. Does anyone have any questions? Cool. So I'm going to do a quick overview of all the mission tasks. So just to highlight here, the theme for Robonation and SUAS 2025 is environmental monitoring. And so the mission is called Skywatch. And what we're trying to do is that we're trying to create a mission where you are flying around, you're going to a runway or some sort of ecosystem, and you're trying to survey the area, detect changes in real time, and deliver support to fragile ecosystems. And basically, all the mission tasks have been designed with this overall type of theme in mind. So you'll kind of see that here as I step through the individual mission tasks. So the first thing is design for transport. So this is a pretty new task that we haven't done before, that is new for SUAS 2025, which is trying to give teams the appropriate points and appropriate appreciation for designing systems that can be easily transported around, taken on planes, deployed quickly, etc. So teams will be given extra points for if their aircraft is lighter, if it can be folded down or packed down to a smaller transport size, and if they're using batteries that are no larger than 100 watt hours. One thing to note here that for the weight and the transport size requirements, we'll be taking that into regards with all components that fly. So that includes your aircraft, your battery, the payload and propellers, etc. Those all must fit within your broken down volume and weight to achieve those points. Like I mentioned previously, since this task is relatively disconnected from your actual mission flight performance, this will be scored during the pre-flight safety inspection so that we can get these done as quickly as possible. Cool. Yep, next slide. The next task is autonomous flight. So autonomous systems definitely are cheaper to operate, are easier to operate, and take away the need for a human to be integrated within the system. So if a team is attempting to do all the tasks, you must have a UAS capable autonomous flight for up to 12 miles, and it will be split over 4 laps over the course of the 30-minute mission clock. And like I mentioned before, you are not allowed to change batteries or refuel for this year's competition. One thing to note here is that if you're not capable of flying the full 12-mile course, you still will be able to attempt some mission tasks. You might only get 2 drops instead of 4 drops, but it isn't something that bars you from completing no tests at all. And like I mentioned, almost all this has to be completed autonomously, aside from takeoff and landing, which you may conduct manually. Although we do give extra points for teams that are able to conduct fully autonomous takeoffs and landings throughout the whole mission. If the safety pod takes over manual control at any point other than takeoff and landing, you are required to go back to the start of your waypoint lap before continuing on to their mission. So if you're halfway through the lap or you're conducting airdrop and the safety pod has to take over manually, you unfortunately have to pause your mission there, fly back to the start of the waypoint lap, and start the waypoint lap over again. This can be seen kind of as a penalty towards the time and flight distance required, but there's no actual scoring penalty associated with this. Yeah, if there's no questions there, we can go to the next slide. So task 3 is about operators. So this ties in closely with autonomous operations, and that we are giving teams more points if they're able to minimize the number of operators required to carry out their mission. So the number of operators is the amount of personnel that the team dictates is needed to conduct their mission. And so this is just for being on the mission time. During setup time and teardown time, you can use all 6 people that you send out to the flight line to help expedite that process. But when you're on the 30-minute mission clock, you want to minimize the number of operators you're using. You can use a maximum of 6 operators, with 2 being required to fulfill the safety pod and the GCS operators rules. I know there's been some questions about what can the safety pod and the operators do while the mission is going on. And so when the aircraft is in the air and flying, the safety pilot has to be dedicated to focusing on the aircraft and focusing on the transmitter in front of them. And the GCS operator has to be focused on the ground control station and the aircraft to making sure that everything is functioning properly and there's no errors popping up, etc. So when the aircraft, so that accounts for when the aircraft is flying. But when you've landed and the aircraft is on the ground, then the safety pilot and the GCS operator can assist with other roles, whether that is moving the aircraft off the runway, loading new payloads, troubleshooting the aircraft, whatever is needed at that point to make sure everything is conducted safely. But the main thing to note there is that when the aircraft is in the air, they have to be dedicated to their roles just because of ensuring that we conduct safe operations. Cool. If there's no questions there, move on to the next slide. So the mapping task is designed around giving a task to teams where they create an imagery map around an area of interest from their UAS. And so that area of interest is already predefined in the rules. And so we recommend that teams already have that preloaded into their GCS and on their system so that they're ready to go as soon as they're out at setup time. Like I mentioned before, setup time is only 15 minutes. So you really want to maximize the amount of stuff you can do prior to being out there. The map will be scored off of quality and percentage coverage of the area of interest. So if you have a perfect quality map, think similar to a Google Earth map, but you only covered 75% of the area of interest, then you probably receive 75 out of 100 points for this task. But if you had a quality of map that was slightly good, slightly bad, let's say like 50% quality, and you covered also 50% of the area, then you'd probably get close to 25 points out of 100. And this will be scored by our scoring judges out there at the competition. One thing to note here is that, like all other tasks within the mission, you must deliver this map via the USB to our judges within the 30-minute mission clock. If you submit this map after the 30-minute mission clock, it won't be accepted, and thus you'll receive no points for this task. I see there's some questions that relate to the operators here, so I'll answer that first. So will we have to provide a list of chosen operators, or can we decide on the fly? We will be asking you to provide a not a list of the operators, but at least tell us who the operators are at the end of your setup time. So after you've conducted the 15 minutes and before you start your mission time, you'll be telling the lead judge and the safety judge there that, hey, this person will be the safety pilot, this person will be our GCS operator, and this person will be our payload operator. Once you've dedicated that, no one else can join during the mission time. So if you're 15 minutes into mission clock and you think you need an extra operator, that won't be allowed. You will just have to do with the 2 to 3 or 4 operators that you've selected at the end of your setup time. As for the second question here, will second flights of team begin on day 1 or day 2? So that's completely up to the weather, how many teams we can fly, etc. As soon as we're done flying everyone within the flight order, we'll probably take like a couple minutes there as a break just to decide if we're going to be reflying teams based off of the weather, what time is it, etc. And then we'll get right to reflying all the teams once again based on the flight order. Another question here, can team members be taking photos or videos during mission time? Yep, as far as I know, you guys are free to take as many pictures or videos as you want. One thing that we request is that if you are not an operator during the mission time, that you will be standing about 5 to 10 feet behind the tent in which the operators are. And so the reason that is because we don't want you communicating with the operators during the mission time, as that would just be an unfair advantage. So if you are taking those photos and videos, be sure that you're not interacting with your operators at any point or conflicting with other teams, etc.
And Manav, just to clarify, that would count towards the 6 people that can be out on the flight line.
Yep. So the team members taking photos or videos during mission time must be within the 6. So yeah, you can't send another person on top of the 6 to take pictures and videos out there just because we don't have a lot of space out there to have a lot of people out there.
And I will just add that we do have an event photographer that will be roaming around taking videos and photos. Obviously, we can't guarantee that we will get everyone during their flight time, but we will have additional photos and videos that are provided after the event as well, from our standpoint.
Yep. I see this other question here. During reloading, can all 6 operators assist in reloading, regardless of the number of operators used during mission time? So I'm assuming you mean that we're in this scenario, you'll be reloading the payloads in the middle of the mission, saying after delivering a couple and landing. So in that case, no, you may not use all 6 operators because you are still on the mission clock during reloading. You can only use the number of operators you specified at the end of setup time. But like I mentioned before, since the aircraft will be on the ground during reloading, your safety pilot and GCS operator can assist in that. So that should help minimize the number of extra people you need. This next question here regarding mapping. Does the mapping need to be done on board or can it be done on a laptop on the ground using images taken from the drone? So we have no requirement either way. You can do the processing on board the aircraft or off board on your laptop or ground control station. The only thing we say is that it has to be submitted within the 30-minute mission clock on that USB drive. So yeah. Cool. Looks like a pause in questions there. So this next task is split up into 2 different types of subsections, task 5A and 5B, because they are related. So 5A is about object detection. So we will be having 4 objects within the airdrop area that has been pre-specified in the rules. And the drone must either autonomously or manually detect those objects, fly over the objects, and deliver the payload. And so one thing to note here is that I say it can be done autonomously or manually. That is only in regards to the whole detection and localization operation. The aircraft flight portion must still remain autonomous. So you can have someone on the ground. If you have someone on the ground that's manually looking at, say, an FPV feed from the drone and telling the GCS operator to fly forward, fly right 5 feet, etc., that is allowed so long as the GCS operator is sending additional waypoints to the drone or clicking around on a map and telling it to fly to specific areas. What isn't allowed is the safety pilot taking over and flying around via the transmitter, or the GCS operator taking over and flying around with the joystick. That would be considered manual flight, and you'd have to stop your airdrop, come back to the starting waypoint lap, and start over again. One other thing to note here is that if you are doing this detection and localization manually, say with someone looking at an FPV feed, that would require an additional third operator or fourth operator, however many you have, because that takes away the GCS operator from their roles while the aircraft is in flight. So like I mentioned, when the aircraft's in flight, the GCS operator has to be focused on the ground control station. So they can't be looking at an FPV feed and trying to enter waypoints, etc. The FPV feed must be looked at from the additional operator there. If your system does it fully autonomously, then you get to save some points because you get to keep less operators and don't need that additional payload or FPV watching operator. One thing to note here, in line with the mission scenario, these objects represent foreign object debris. So think of someone has left foreign object on the runway that could cause an issue for aircraft taking off or landing. So your goal is to basically find that object and deliver the beacon to it. In an ideal scenario, the beacon would be strobing and it would tell someone on the ground that, hey, there's an object here. Or it would tell someone in the aircraft that they would be able to see the beacon and be like, this runway is unsafe to land, etc. The full list of potential items is given in the rules, and we will not veer from that list. So for everyone training their models to autonomously detect these objects, you can stick to that list given in the rules. I see a question here in chat. For the UTM coordinates and altitude for waypoints, are the altitudes relative to ground or sea and in feet or meters? When we give you the waypoints at the start of setup time, we will give you both altitudes relative to the ground and relative to the sea. So we'll be giving you both AGL and MSL altitudes. You are free to use whichever ones your GCS operations best sync with. And all altitudes and everything will be in feet. So we are using aviation units throughout the competition. So altitude in feet, speed in knots, etc. Climb rate and feet per minute. So when in doubt, use aviation units, but also refer to our rules for all the unit requirements there. Cool. Another question here. Can the safety pilot wear FPV goggles or do they need to maintain line of sight? As per FAA regulations, the safety pilot needs to maintain line of sight of the drone. And so if you want someone wearing FPV goggles, that would have to be an additional operator. Cool. So moving on to the next portion of a similar task is the airdrop portion. So once you've detected the object, you'll be delivering a single beacon to the object, and you may deliver up to 4 payloads throughout the mission. And so this would be 1 payload per lap. So you would fly a lap, deliver a payload, fly another lap, deliver a payload. You can land at any point to reload, but one thing to note is that after every delivery or after every takeoff, you have to fly 1 complete lap to simulate flying to another area of the runway or another runway. The payload must be delivered with some sort of retardant mechanism. So that would be, say, a parachute, a winch, a glider, etc., something that prevents the payload from just falling in free fall. It also needs to survive. So once the payload has been delivered, the ground airdrop judge will retrieve the beacon from your payload system and turn it on, see if it still flashes, make sure there's no extreme damage to it, make sure the battery didn't pop out, etc. And so that's one thing to note is that whatever mechanism you're using to deliver the object, it should deliver it safely enough to that where the beacon survives because one, that's more in line with what would be done in a real life mission scenario, but also because we are reusing these beacons, so we don't want to churn through a bunch of beacons here. One thing to note there is that you get extra points if you get within 25 feet from a target object, and you also get extra points if you deliver to unique objects. And like with the rest of the mission, you're not allowed to go lower than 50 feet AGL during payload delivery. So if you do descend below 50 feet AGL, that does count as a mission fence breach. So you will be required both to return back to land, and also the delivery will not count because you descended below that 50 feet AGL fence. Cool. Next task. So the 6th task here is about operational excellence. So there's a bunch of quantitative things we can score throughout the mission, such as how many drops you get, how accurate your drops are, how long your flight took, how many laps you flew, etc. But some things can't be quantified just in one of our tasks here. So we have this section that's up to 50 points where we try to score you on those non-quantifiable elements such as your professionalism, communication between team members, reaction to system failures, and attention to safety. So this would be things like operators communicating to each other in concise languages and clear language, communicating to the judge clearly, saying, hey, we're about to go into airdrop, giving us the heads up and whatnot. If stuff is failing, reacting properly and in a safe manner, not running out to the aircraft while it's still landing, making sure that you're clear of the runway when other aircraft are landing, etc. And just generally operational professionalism between your internal team, but also with all the other teams at competition, our judges, etc., making sure that everything is done in both a professional and safe and nice manner. Cool. So the last part of these tasks is the penalties. So there is no cap to penalties. So you could theoretically lose all your points to penalties if you don't abide properly. Hopefully these are relatively easy to abide through, but unfortunately stuff happens and we do have to penalize teams based on if those things have happened. So like I mentioned before, excess time penalty. So if you go over the 30 minutes, you will lose 0.5% of your mission score for every second. And so that means that if you go 200 seconds over, you will lose pretty much all of your score. And so that's only about 3 minutes and 20 seconds there where you can go over. So we are really extra penalizing any overage over the mission time of 30 minutes because we really need to get as many teams out there and flying as much as possible. One extra thing to note here is that if you do complete any task outside of the 30 minutes, like you submit mapping outside 30 or you complete an extra airdrop out of the 30 after the 30 minutes, those will not count towards your score. So there's no incentive to stay up in the air, try to get an extra airdrop in, even though you're getting penalized there. For the 10-minute timeout, you'll lose 5% of your mission score. For things falling off the aircraft, you'll lose 10% of your mission score per item. So this is everything outside the payload within the airdrop area. So if a screw falls off your aircraft, and we could see that screw fall off, or if a landing gear falls off, etc. If anything falls off your aircraft outside the airdrop zone, you'll be penalized by 10%. This also means that if an airdrop payload falls off your aircraft while you're flying the waypoint lap and you're not within the airdrop boundary, that will also count as a things falling off aircraft penalty. As per crash or collision, this is a 50% emission score for any crash or collision that you have. So this includes your own aircraft crashing, but also if your aircraft collides with another aircraft. One thing to note here is that for the collision aspect, when your aircraft is within your runway's airspace, so on your runway and either on the ground or below that 50 feet AGL fence, then no penalty will be applied if someone crashes into you as you're trying to take off or land. A crash penalty will still be applied because if you do crash during takeoff and landing, that is within your own team's control, and so that 50% penalty will still be applied. The next bullet point here is about unsafe operations. And so that would be 50% per infraction. And so this is for really, really unsafe operations where, let's say if a judge tells you to manually take over the drone and you refuse to manually take over and you let it continue flying, or if a judge tells you to land now and you refuse to land, that would be considered an unsafe operation where you get a 50% penalty. Safe operation is, let's say you are conducting an autonomous landing, but the autonomous landing is clearly not going well. It looks like it's going to fly right into the tents or right into a person or an operator, and you don't take over and you just let it land and let it crash into that tent or the operator. You will get both a crash penalty if that happened and an unsafe operations penalty because you didn't manually take over the drone when it was clearly assigned to manually take over the drone there. The next penalty is an out of bounds. So if you breach the mission geofence, you first will be required to return to home and land. And if the out of bounds was egregious and you like breached the geofence and kept flying and you flew over the nearby roads, etc., then it's up to the judge and they can fully terminate your mission and end your mission there if it was a really unsafe out of bounds. One thing to note here is that if your aircraft is trying to complete a turn and it slightly scratches the mission boundary there, goes outside by 10 feet and whatnot, it's up to the judge to call return to home or mission termination. So in some cases, if you slightly breach the boundary, but you're obviously trying to bank and go to the next waypoint and everything's operating as expected and safely, then you may be allowed to continue your mission without any penalty there. And lastly, like I mentioned before, Any manual pilot takeover, whether that's the GCS with a joystick or the safety pilot with a transmitter, would require you to come back and restart the waypoint lap, resume autonomous flight before conducting any additional tasks such as airdrop or mapping. I see a question here. To avoid a visible collision, if we take over manually, do we need to restart the waypoint lap or can we resume directly? If you are avoiding collision and take over manually, you still will undergo the manual pilot takeover penalty. So you would have to restart the waypoint lap. Obviously, if you think you're going to collide with another drone, we fully recommend that you take over manually because the penalty of restarting a lap is way lower than the penalty of crashing, which will most likely end your mission, and you get the 50% penalty there. But yeah, you will still be required to restart the waypoint lap. And the reason we do that is because we want to give a greater scoring advantage to those teams that have fully autonomous systems. So we know some teams out there have LiDAR systems or other obstacle avoidance systems on their aircraft. And if those perform as expected in autonomous nature, then they'd be able to continue their mission without manual pilot takeover and thus wouldn't have to go through the restart waypoint lap penalty. Cool. I think I'll pass it back to Juliana to close out here, and then we'll take any questions.
Perfect. Yes, like Manav said, if you have any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I have a few reminders to go over, and then we'll open it back up. So just a few quick links here for you. Obviously, all of you are familiar with the SUAS website, but just a QR here to point you back there. We are going to be posting all the information there. Like Sherry mentioned earlier, the event schedule is up so that you can see all the details there of the locations and the times for each part of the event that we have scheduled. The team handbook, make sure that you have read that thoroughly. All of the details that we're going over today are in there, so make sure that you are very familiar with everything there. Hopefully going over it all in this format today helped kind of synthesize some of the information. I know there's a lot of details to incorporate in your plans, so hopefully this has been helpful. The next one is data sharing. So this is something new for SUAS this year, but it's something we've been able to incorporate in other competitions for RoboNation. So we wanted to open up this resource to all of you. So this is an online resource with the toolbox. All of you as registered teams have access to the data sharing platform so that you can utilize it to share data between all of you. Hopefully it can be helpful. It can only be helpful if you participate in it. So the more that you're able to contribute from your team, whether that be certain design files or any other types of data that may be useful for your team as you're preparing for competition, the more useful it will be for the whole community. I know that it is primarily useful for any of our newer teams that are coming in that may not have much to go off of. So as much as you're willing to share, even if that is after the event and after the competition is over, that can be hopefully a useful tool for all of you. The last one is Discord. Hopefully most of you are familiar with it. It is a tool that we're using to stay connected and answer a lot of these types of questions. Manav is always on there and ready and willing to answer any of the questions you throw at him. This will also be something that we use during the event, especially to share any updates or information as we go through. So make sure that you're on there and at least have one person from your team. If you don't have access to Discord for whatever reason, please let us know so that we can make sure that you get the information that's out there. We'll try to work with you as best we can, but we want to make sure to make sure that you have all the information you need. All right, we're going to open back up to some questions, and I see one in the chat already. Sherry, I'm going to throw this one over to you. Is it convenient to drive out to get lunch, or teams recommended to get the meal tickets? So if Sherry is still on her computer, she may have stepped away. Oh, she's here. Perfect. In the middle of cooking dinner.
Thank you. I wasn't allowed to unmute there for a minute. Yes, it is fairly convenient. I would say it's probably 10 to 15 minutes away to the nearest place where you can get lunch. It's convenient, but I would say that it's as convenient to get a boxed lunch. The selections are good. The sandwiches are good. Our caterer does a great job, but that is up to you. There are supermarkets, there are fast food restaurants. The one thing I would kind of discourage you from doing is like Uber Eats or DoorDash. You can do some of those things, but if you're going to pay for DoorDash or Uber Eats, you might as well pre-purchase a meal. So, but it's pretty convenient. But if you just it'll take you 30-minute round trip possibly, plus the time for you to wait to get your food. So,
Yeah, one other thing to note there, the you can eat lunch whenever if you're not getting the prepaid, obviously. One thing to note is that we're running flights 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. So we're not pausing flights for lunch. So if your team does go up and we get your team at between that 12 to 1 timeline or some period there and you're out for lunch, then we will have to move you to the end of the flight order if you guys aren't ready to go out there. So just try to plan that accordingly. We'll be providing updates throughout the mission saying we're at team number 7 right now in the air, so you should be able to adapt properly. If you know your team 20, you have probably this much time before you're going to go up and fly. So just try to plan lunch accordingly there. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Okay, any other questions from the group? I know that we had a few other questions that came through on the form, but we are just about at time. So if you submitted any questions on the form and we didn't cover it today, we're gonna send out some emails just so that you have the answers to your questions in writing. But if there isn't any other questions, we will go ahead and close out. Any parting comments from anyone in the group?
yeah, I'd just like to say I'm super excited to have all of you with us, and just wanted to just say one more time that RoboNation, all of our staff is here to help you with any problems that you have. Manav is, and Joe and I and Juliana and Laverne, we will do everything that we can to help you if you run into a problem. If I can't help you, I'll tell you, but we're excited and we want you to know that we're a resource that you can use. So.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sherry. And that, yes, I would reiterate that. Hopefully you felt like that with responsiveness with Discord and email and everything, but that will continue on site. Please come reach out to us. We're here to help you with any situation. So we're there to help and hopefully make a great experience for you. We did have one other question that slipped through. How early will we be notified before our flight to have things ready?
Yeah, so probably it's going to be pretty short notice. Assuming you've passed the safety inspection, it's going to be on the order of 10 minutes or less that will tell you that the trailer is coming out in 10 minutes, get everything ready and get everything loaded on the trailer within that time. But like I mentioned, we'll be reporting in real time which team's up in the air right now. So you should be able to gauge how far you are from the current flight order to where your flight order is. So there'll be a little bit of notification there in that type of regime. But in terms of a hard coded time, it'll be 10 minutes before your flight, before your trailer comes out to pick you up.
I would add to that also, just keep in mind what Manav said earlier, that there may be some teams in between those numbers that haven't gotten their cleared safety inspection. So there may be some numbers that are skipped in the flow just because they're not cleared yet. So if we're on team 10 and you're team 20, I would be starting to get ready and everything, because those teams are already all prepped and starting to get staged. So just be very conservative with that and try to be as prepared and quick to respond on that. All right. Thank you all so very much. We are excited to be able to bring you this team time and bring everyone together. We are planning on doing this every season, so hopefully this will be helpful. We're always open to feedback. If there's any particular information that you would have wanted to hear in this that we didn't cover, or anything that did work well, we will be sending a feedback form after the event, so make sure to keep that in mind. But we're always open to feedback, so feel free to reach out to us. But we will see everyone very soon, about a month away, so it's exciting. Thank you all so much for the time. Hopefully you will have a great rest of your day, night, evening, but thank you for joining us.